All right. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today with Emily to talk about nature journaling for beginners. Hi, Emily.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you today. And, we were just talking a little bit before I hit the go live button. And one thing I've noticed is it seems like the nature journaling community actually, the majority of people in our community are beginners. So I think it's really important sometimes to talk to people who are beginners, even though sometimes y'all feel like, oh, I'm a beginner. What am I going to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I'm a music teacher, so I think honoring all levels of achievement is important.
Great. Well, let's maybe like let's dive in a little bit and maybe you can sort of share some recent pages and describe sort of what your ideal nature journaling outing would be like as a nature journaling beginner.
Sure. So I love learning things, so that's kind of where I started. For me, I'm not yet comfortable sketching in the field. I've done a
Mm,
little bit of it, like at a zoo, but when I'm actually out on a hike or in my garden sometimes. I just want to stay in the moment. So I'll just take photos, and then
mm-hmm,
I will use those photos at home to kind of solidify my experience and my memory of the event. And I find that that's been really a great way to like connect more with place, whether it's my local park
mm-hmm,
or with like my own plants at home
mm,
or my own birds at home. So
mm-hmm,
for me, it's not about like I'm a birder, but for me, it's not really about having like a life list. I'm more
mm-hmm,
interested in the birds that show up every day to
mm.
my backyard. That's just me.
Wow,
So
cool.
I've been trying to form a more intentional relationship
Mm-hmm.
with my place, my local place, and finding what's special about it. So
Mm.
that's how I'm approaching it.
Great. Well, it sounds like you've thought about your intentions a lot. And I always feel like that's a really good starting place because if we start, judging, like, how are we supposed to measure the success of a nature journaling outing, for example, or even know what our ideal nature journaling outing would look like if we don't have an idea of what our goals are? So let's see some of your pages because, it's a visual, people are highly visual, so let's
Yeah,
see what some of
so
your
so
stuff
like I
looks
said,
like.
I don't have the most exciting birds because I'm interested in who I see.
Okay.
But I
All right. I'm going to put you on solo layout here for a little bit
I
to see
did
better.
I did see this ginkgo tree last fall.
Ooh,
And what's
cool.
interesting about this tree is I actually took some leaves home. And if you
Oh.
look, there's like a weird ridge. Um, the other trees had turned yellow, but
Oh.
this tree had a sort of ring of rot on all of its
Oh,
leaves and they looked the same.
really?
And I was just like, why is it doing that? And so I drew some ginkgo leaves like the rest of them look in the fall and then pre-transition here. And then this tree with this odd uh ring here.
That
And
is
so that
really
was pretty
interesting.
fun. And that was just my local park, ginkgo trees are kind of in local parks.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with that. My hometown actually has one of the best wildlife reserves, I
Oh.
think, personally, in California. And so this was one of my adventures at the wildlife reserve in November. So I saw a white-faced ibis.
Mm.
I saw a bunch of ducks, of course, a black phoebe, a lot of stilts, and a really cool hawk. And I managed to take this photo through my binoculars on my phone. I don't
Oh,
know how I did
nice.
that, but I tried really hard, and so I tried to get the binocular view here.
Mhm. Love that.
Uh,
Cool.
so yeah, I do use a really cheap kind of gouache here. I saw somebody asking.
Yes, let's answer that. Let's go ahead and
Yeah,
answer that
this is just
question.
a Strathmore. You can see it's a Strathmore soft cover toned that I got on Amazon. My local store doesn't have it.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so I used photos. I took photos at the reserve, which like I said, I managed to get some like zoomed photos from my binoculars by putting my
Mhm.
lens on the binocular. I don't know how,
Mhm. Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. tricky,
And
but
then
doable.
I drew them from photos. So I didn't do this in the field. So
Mhm.
this was more of a way of remembering my trip. And
Okay.
yeah, I started off with this gouache set, which you may have
Mm.
seen on Amazon if you've looked at art supplies on there. And it's just what they call the jelly gouache. It's not great,
Oh,
but it's
interesting.
really convenient. For
Hmm.
me, I have ADHD, so lowering the barrier of entry for an activity is really good. So
Mhm.
for me, just opening this and all the paints are ready, that's good.
Yes, I'll definitely have to get the link, to that, and I'll put it in the notes later.
I am looking to upgrade it though because as you saw, some of them are missing because they go to mold if you don't let them dry out.
Oh,
So you got to
really?
be careful with those.
Interesting.
But
Wow.
yeah, I really like toned paper. I was really inspired by somebody on the Nature Journaling Club or
Mhm.
John Muir Law's one of his videos. I saw toned paper and then I was like, that's it.
Mm.
So that's where I do my biggest work.
Mhm.
This is again not very super interesting bird wise, but it's a Muscovy duck,
Mhm.
which is a duck that's grown, a duck that's domesticated for meat purposes
Mhm.
or as pets.
Mhm.
And this duck was left at my local park, and she's
Mhm.
been there for since last summer. And she lives with the native ducks, and she's much
Mhm.
bigger than them. And she's very tame, and so I have a relationship with her. She recognizes me, and I feed her oats whenever I'm there. And so I did a spread about her and what I learned about Muscovy ducks after finding out what she was.
Nice.
And yeah, this is again just gouache and micron pen liner
Mhm.
and a little bit of Posca
Oh,
white
yeah, nice. I
right here.
saw I saw that page on your Instagram and really liked it, and,
Thank you.
speaking of nature journaling ducks, I just wanted to point out that Verena is here from, Berlin, and I interviewed her recently about nature journaling in Germany, and she mentioned that lots of people will be drawing ducks, at urban parks, so just, wanted to give a shout out that she made it despite the time difference and everything like that. Thanks for joining in,
Ducks
Verena.
are really
That's
great.
a big honor to have. She has a really great Instagram for nature journaling in Germany. Even if you can't understand German, I highly recommend checking it out. And Verena, you should also check out Emily's Instagram. And I'll just put your Instagram up now, but we can talk about that more later. And let's talk a little bit more. I'll just put that up for people who are here now early to see. But let's talk a little bit more about some of this stuff for beginners, right? Because I think there's so many beginners in the nature journaling community, which suggests like a young movement, basically
Hmm.
young in the sense that most of our demographic is just getting started. So maybe you could give us some tips for getting started with nature journaling, like from your perspective of being pretty new. Like what are some, because I think it's good to get tips from people like you, because someone who's been doing it for a really long time, they might not be in the best position to actually teach it. So what are some tips that you have?
Let's see. So my first thing is there's tons of resources for free that you don't have to pay for. For
Hmm.
example, your YouTube channel, but also, as you know, John Muir Laws has tons of these free like workshops that he's done that go on his YouTube page. And I think they got recommended to me on the YouTube algorithm one day, and I
Hmm.
started watching them, not being an artist.
Hmm.
And then I was like, oh, that's really neat. And it seems like I could do that. Um, but then, most importantly, I started noticing the birds around me. Like, I actually started paying attention to that, and I had never done that before. Um, and it really just took one or two awesome experiences with a bird for me to be like, okay, this is actually really neat, and I want to record this, and uh, I want to learn to draw these. So that's kind of how I got started. I think finding inspiration and then connecting it to place for me. What's special about my place? What's special about the birds that are here, right?
Hmm.
And then also, I think for me, I keep it really simple. I've tried a lot of different mediums, and I'm probably going to continue exploring them. But right now, I'm comfortable with pencil, and I'm comfortable sometimes when I'm fancy with gouache. And I'm
Mhm.
okay with that.
Mhm.
So just kind of like adding one or two tools to a drawing, like the Posca pen. Never used it before. Maybe I'll try it on this. Maybe
Mhm.
it'll ruin the drawing, but then I'll know how to use it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but then starting always with what I'm comfortable with so that I
Mhm.
don't feel like that blank page anxiety
Mhm.
that I don't like, that nobody likes.
Yeah. Those are
Uh,
some good tips.
I think I just pencil. Like
Mhm.
just there's so many great things you can do with pencils, and it's easy to spend tons of money on art supplies, which I do, but buy a pencil and then
Great.
try it out.
So we've got someone here in the audience, Richard, who said he's thinking of getting into nature journaling. Could you give, you mentioned the word inspiration before, inspiration or motivation or anything that you could say, like if you could say one thing to someone who's thinking about it, they're already watching videos online, obviously, about it.
I would say um, the coolest part that I've found about nature journaling is that there's something exciting going on in your backyard or in your local park right now. And maybe it's not something that on first view is interesting. Like you see ducks all the time, but oh, maybe that duck doesn't match the others.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually staying for a moment and being like, why? Asking why? What happened here? And then the more you notice, the more you realize that um, birds and wildlife are doing their own thing around us all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really easy for us to just not pay attention. And then
Yeah.
I guarantee once you start paying attention, it's just so exciting. There's so much going on.
Yeah, I remember nature journaling at an urban park with John Muir Laws, and we were looking at ducks, and they're pretty boring ducks. Like, and there was some American coots also, which are, usually people who are birders are like, oh, that's a trash bird. Those are so boring.
I
And
love them. They're
we
like
saw
water chickens.
we saw a peregrine falcon fly down and kill one. So that was, and then we got to go over there because what ended up happening is we saw it from like the other side of the pond,
Mm-hmm.
and luckily we were paying attention in nature journaling, or else we wouldn't have noticed the peregrine falcon was coming, because actually it was flying low to the water. It didn't dive down from high above,
Oh,
it
so it
flew
came
in from,
in.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And I think they do that quite a bit, actually. And but so we saw that, so we actually saw the whole thing happen, and then I guess some people were nearby, and the falcon abandoned the kill, and so the falcon flew away, and we went over and got to see the dead coot, like its fingers and toes and stuff
Wow.
like
I've
that.
never seen
So
one up close.
yeah, that
I've
was,
only ever seen them from about 30 feet away at
yeah,
most.
that's one of the advantages of paying attention, like you're mentioning. So, what was the hardest part for you? What do you think is one of the hardest parts about nature journaling for beginners and newbies and people who are just getting into it?
Um, I think it's being comfortable with not being good at something.
Mm,
Like a, a lot of people get into nature journaling being of the mind that we want to be a great artist and we want to
mhm,
recreate these amazing pages that we see people making. I definitely struggle with that. And at the same time, it's kind of taken a little bit of like being comfortable learning
mhm.
and being new at something. I think that that's pretty vulnerable.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
a lot of people don't have that experience every day in their lives. That's probably the hardest part.
Yeah, that is a really good tip. And I have a follow-up question to that. But first of all, before I lose this, Susan is here and she always has some really handy tips. And she has a tip about mold growing on gouache.
Ooh, uh, clove oil.
So
Ooh,
just
that's a good
wanted to share
idea.
that in case you want to try that. It could be
Thank you.
fun. Maybe it could work as I might try that too, because it might make me smell good. Thanks, Susan.
Does
Susan
smell
often
good.
has some really cool tips.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to get that comment up before I ask my next question, so I don't forget about Susan's comment. But okay, so I must admit, and maybe there's other people wondering this, that are watching right now. But when I first saw your pages on Instagram, I didn't think you were a beginner. I thought they were pretty well done. So I assumed you had some type of art
Thank you.
background. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit, Or do you think that maybe some people, and I know that, there's a lot of different opinions, and this can be you as a teacher in a creative discipline, maybe have some like awareness and sensitivity to this as well. But like, if I and some people say that you can't judge art objectively or nature journal pages objectively, but when I look at your treatment of gouache and some of your pages, it doesn't look to me, it looks pretty well done to me from like
Thank you.
objective standards of art. So maybe you could say something about like, do you believe, and I'm also really interested and really committed to the concept of growth mindset, and so I'm very invested in that concept. So I often discount the influence of like talent, or that some people might just be. I always tell people, you don't come out of your mom. You're not like, you don't pop out of your mom being able to draw better. So maybe you could speak a little bit to like the concept of talent, or sort of in. Do you think some people have better abilities at some of these things just right off the bat? Or maybe you could say something about your drawings, and maybe you could hold up some of those again, and just in case someone else who might be a nature journaling beginner, if their Muscovy ducks in gouache on their, don't look like yours, just to kind of put that into perspective. Maybe you could freestyle off of that a little
Yeah,
bit.
so this is a subject I feel very strongly about. I'm a piano teacher, and I started learning piano uh, in high school, which is very late if you are a classical musician. And
Mm,
so uh, I practiced really hard through college and got very comfortable at being probably the worst in my class.
mm,
And so for me, learning something is always exciting. I'm comfortable with that. But also learning how to learn something is something that always keeps me engaged. So like when I reached about where I felt like I knew the process of how to learn any piano piece, now I'm like, I'm not interested.
mhm,
Not
mhm.
not really. I love piano, but do you know what I mean? Like I
Yes.
now it's like, okay, now I want to know if this same process works for other things,
Mhm,
which is what I did with art. I started a year ago. Like I said, I just loved birds. So I was like, how do I make those shapes?
mhm,
And I kind of approached it the same way that I do with piano. Like, okay, there's notes on there. There's notes on the page. How do I make that into this other thing that sounds nothing like that? Uh, and it's kind of learning a process, like how you learn a language and how you learn art and how you learn piano. I think they have something in common in
mhm,
process.
mhm,
And that's, if you can love the process of learning something and think of that as a goal as well,
mhm.
I think that I hope that's not too abstract, but
No, that's
I
great.
find that that's the exciting part for me is discovering, oh, what does this have in common with learning music?
Mhm,
Maybe it's a little different, but maybe there's things in common that seem to be uh, exciting to me.
mhm. Okay. Yeah, I love to believe in the idea that, learning how to learn is a transferable skill. And if you spend enough time developing mastery in one thing, you learn a process that then can be applied to learning other
Yeah.
topics.
And on the subject of talent, before we move on,
Mhm,
people talk about genius, right? That's
mhm,
something that gets floated around in the classical music community a lot.
mhm,
And it's easy to think, oh, people are just born with that, right? Um, but when you think about somebody like Mozart, who
mhm,
is truly in our culture the epitome of genius,
mhm,
he read sheet music better than I could in college as his first language.
mhm,
He didn't learn to write letters. He learned
mm,
to read music and play the fiddle and play the piano first before he did anything else. So if you are exposed to that early, of course you're going to be so many far leagues ahead of everyone else. So I think some people are things come easier to them for sure.
mhm,
Everybody has different strengths, but I
mhm,
think talent is not necessary
Mhm.
The innate born talent is not necessary. Exposure is necessary.
Mhm.
Or,
Wow.
and
Are there
that's true of music, but I think it's probably true of art too.
Yeah, that's really amazing, and I wanna kind of go back a little bit to your story about being, the worst in your getting used to being the worst in your class with the music. Like, what other I feel like that's a super powerful thing. What else, what other are there any other gyms in there or any other lessons in there that you think could be helpful for people? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that in nature journaling, and especially, like, as the community gets bigger and with platforms such as Instagram and Facebook that, float to the top the stuff that is visually most striking, I think a lot of people, even people who aren't nature journaling beginners, get disheartened, and they might see stuff like yours and it might actually be almost intimidating, or they might feel bad about their own stuff. Like, maybe those things aren't related, but is there anything else from that experience, like getting you said it in a really powerful way, something about like getting comfortable being the worst in your class, or like, can you expand on that a little bit more?
For me, I think I'm not an overly competitive person, so I think this may not be for everybody. Some people do feel rather competitive, and especially in the classical music world. It's a way to find success, right? If you feel competitive, you can.
Hmm.
Anyway, I wasn't. I always felt like I loved what I was doing, and that was why I was doing it. And I of course I'm envious when I see these beautiful pages on Facebook, but then I also remember like I'm interested in this project right here, and this is meaningful to me. And if you can find something that's meaningful to you rather than the larger bird community, or something that's like impressive, I think that's gonna give you more results than trying to mimic someone else's.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's almost like this idea of like, if you figure out what is your niche and you focus on that, then you don't have to worry about like comparing yourself to people on Instagram that are on the other side of the planet. Is that sort of what you're
Yeah, and well, to bring it into a music perspective, I had friends that were working on huge concerto pieces, and I would be like, "Wow, they're really doing something amazing there." I'm working on this little piece, but there's still something special here.
Mhm.
There's still something special with my project,
Mhm.
and it can still be valuable even if it's not as celebrated as this big project over here.
Mhm.
It's meaningful to me, and so I find reward in it.
Yeah,
I
you're
hope that makes
taking
sense.
pride in you take pride in whatever you're doing, basically, even if it's a small thing, it's your thing and you can take pride in it.
Well, and it's meaningful to me personally.
Mhm.
Like this page I did last night. It's a
Ooh,
house plant.
right. Let me put you on solo layout so people can see that even better.
It's just a house plant um that I saw on the internet
Mhm.
last year, and I found in my my boyfriend's family's garden. Actually, his aunt had a pot of them, and I said, "Oh, could I borrow one? Or do you have any extra seeds?" And she gave me this pot. And so it's just my house plant. But I find it so fascinating how it behaves. And so yeah, it's not the most obscure plant in the world, but
Mhm.
I really enjoyed connecting with this plant and finding out why it does what it does.
Yeah, that's a great example, and I think if anything is good at this, nature journaling is so perfect for finding our own things, or, finding that connection or something special even in our own backyard, and finding wonder in those small things. So I think it's the perfect hobby for that. Okay, great. Well, this has been there's a lot of cool stuff that I'm learning just talking to you, so I'm really grateful for that. Just a couple more questions here about nature journaling for beginners before we go into the lightning round. But what do you think is a common misconception that beginners have about nature journaling?
Uh, it's easy to get too precious with your pages, I think. Right? Beginner,
Yes.
I feel like I'm still struggling with that. I'm pretty precious about this notebook in particular. But I think it's better to get things down on the page than it is to never do the page,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the way I get around that is I just have several notebooks, and one of them's like a trash notebook
Mm-hmm.
for like my trash ideas, and then one of
Mm-hmm.
them's like just sketches, like a medium
Mm-hmm.
level, and then the tone paper is where I bring out the paint. I think it's easy to think you need all the best art supplies in the world and you need the perfect drawing and all that, but I think sometimes even my like fastest, ugliest, sketchiest drawings I'm the most excited about.
Mm. Okay, that is a super good tip right there. So, and it looks like Verena agrees with that one. And I've definitely been a proponent. Like, I think I have a video that says one journal to rule them all, or something. It's an old one, but I said just keep one nature journal, or put all your, you could do your bullet journaling, do everything in the exact same journal. And I was a big proponent of that for a long time. But this idea of using multiple journals, I have one actually. I've been using these small ones, sort of in that way, having one journal where you can just really experiment with. And I wrote this quote: "Little to lose." If
Yeah.
there's like nothing to lose in that journal, you're likely to take bigger risks. So that's a really good unlock. I love
Yeah,
that.
and just lowering the barrier of entry, whatever that is
Mhm.
that makes you anxious, lower that barrier of entry so that you're
Mm.
doing it more. Like, so
Mhm.
here's my trash notebook.
Mhm.
I'll just show you. This is embarrassing, but
This
yeah,
is good
look,
for people to see,
yeah,
actually.
look at this trash. This is just I'm just like playing around here. Let me go to the earlier part.
Okay.
Uh, just exploring
Yeah.
really things that I wouldn't normally like see. It's all kind of messy, it's not
Yeah.
organized,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
um just notes. It's just, this
Mhm.
is my low
Yeah.
effort. Then
Okay,
I
that's
have
that's
just
good.
sketches here.
Oh, here we go.
This is just pencil, and
Yeah.
just getting really comfortable with letting it uh be
Mhm.
bad. Well,
Yeah.
some of them turned out really good, right? And then
Yes.
others, like this flamingo, hate him.
Uh-huh.
Hate that, but letting it be. This is one of my favorite drawings I've ever done, this little
Uh-huh.
blue one,
Uh-huh.
and I did it in 30 seconds.
Nice.
And that was like, how did that happen? And I
Yeah.
can't recreate it. But that wouldn't have happened if I was doing it in my toned journal where I'm too precious,
Yeah.
right? So uh, just letting it be what
This
it
is
is
really
in
good
some of
to
these
see,
notebooks.
because I feel like now we're also seeing your pencil miles. So like if someone looks at your Instagram feed, they might be like, how is she a beginner and all of this? But like seeing the pencil miles, now it's like, okay, this makes sense. You've definitely put in like a lot of hours practicing. So
Thank you.
this is awesome. And there's a lot of interesting comments from the live chat. Um Kate Wallace on Facebook says she loves to see, she likes the trash notebook. Uh-oh, my internet might be slowing down here. Um, and lots of people are loving seeing that. So my
I
internet
love it
looks
too. I love that notebook too in its own way. It, it's
great.
it's not as fancy as the painted one, but I love it too. Like I said, some of the most interesting magic happens there.
Yay. Awesome. Okay, let's talk about, okay, one last question here. Can you hear me?
Hmm.
Sorry, I froze for a second there, I think. Um, okay, one question I have is kind of a funny one. If there was a mascot for nature journaling beginners, what do you think would be a good mascot?
Um, I think a duck. They're easy to find.
Okay. Okay, great. That's a good one.
I don't know. Is this the lightning round?
All right. Sounds Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there. I'm getting distracted because my internet keeps telling me that it's unstable, but I don't know why. All right, let's talk a little bit about supplies for beginners. And I know that we started to talk about it a little bit, but maybe you could say a little bit more about sort of your ideas about supplies for beginners. Like, what do you recommend, or what
Okay,
you
so
talked that
like
you
I
use
said, I'm a big
gouache.
fan of just a regular pencil. But I do like John Muir Law's idea of the non-photo blue pencil
Mm-hmm.
for creating the first shapes. I don't always
Mm-hmm.
do it anymore, but it really helped me get started. This
Mm.
is just a Caran d'Ache non-photo blue pencil, which I find is a little bit softer than the one that John Muir Laws suggests. Um, and then I just have pencils, and I like to have a bunch of different pencils because I'm in different moods every day. So you can see I have a bunch
Mm.
of different pencils. This one's actually like a drawing pencil, and I have 3 different kinds of these, and then just like a regular pencil, and then some mechanical pencils of different softness. I do recommend those. If you are interested in tonal paper, I really
Mm-hmm.
recommend white charcoal. If you're not comfortable
Oh, I
yet,
love that pencil.
if you're not comfortable yet with gouache paint, this is like so bright. It's better than a colored pencil, so you can really like push that highlight. That's pretty cool. And
Yeah,
Jelly
that
Roll
is a great one.
gel pen also will do that. But my best friends are Micron pens. These are expensive,
Mm-hmm.
so I wouldn't suggest buy a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of these if you're new. I would say buy a couple and see if you like them. Uh, and then you can collect them over time. They last a long time. But what I like about these is that they come in different sizes and colors, and they're waterproof, so you can kind of paint over them.
Mhm.
I like
Yeah.
that. Uh, so those are some things. This is like a basic for art, but I do recommend it. It's just a putty eraser.
Mhm.
I think it's way better than any of the erasers on the backs of the pencils. So I
Yeah.
do like that. Trying to think. I'm not super comfortable or good at color pencil yet. So I'd say if you love
Mhm.
color pencil, do it. Um, but try gouache. I found it
Mhm.
to be really fun. I'd
Yeah,
say,
I'm definitely gonna look up that kit because I didn't know about that kit. I'm
but
trying to learn gouache. I go back and forth trying to learn gouache, and I still haven't really figured it out or how to carry it into the field also, so I'm still and
well,
how
like
to
I
get the
said, I
colors
don't
that
do
I
that.
want.
I
Okay,
take photos and or I'll do like a pencil sketch in the field and then I'll take it home and do the painting. Um,
okay.
and this set was like $25. So you get a lot of
Wow.
paint for that. But they also have really small sets with only like 12 colors. So
Mhm.
pretty cheap, low barrier to entry, but again, they're not like the most professional gouache.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't mind. I don't know anything about gouache. I'm just getting started, so
Mhm. Great. Have
but
you
I
seen,
like them.
have you ever seen Liz Clayton Fuller's work? I interviewed her like a couple years ago. She does amazing gouache.
Ooh, maybe. I'm really bad with names, but I bet if
Okay,
I
yeah,
saw the Instagram, I would
she might
recognize it.
have a different she does lives on Twitch a lot, I think, but she
Oh,
does have an
okay.
Instagram that I think is under her name, Liz Clayton Fuller.
Okay.
And she does a lot of bird art, and she uses gouache really nicely. And she taught a class at the Nature Journaling Conference, not this past year, but the year before that, all about her gouache technique. And I think in my interview with her, she talks about it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I paint burbs is you can find her if you search for I paint
I
burbs,
paint
I
birds. I
think.
love that.
Yeah, or Liz Clayton Fuller. Really great stuff.
Cool.
Um, let's see here. Okay, cool. So let's go on to the next thing. Actually, just one more thing, if you before we go to the lightning round, is you mentioned, and let me know if you feel comfortable talking about it. You mentioned ADHD or ADD. I can't remember which one.
Hmm.
How do you think? I'm really interested in different places on the attention spectrum and how nature journaling can work with that, or how different nature journaling styles we can sort of adapt it to our attention. And I've noticed with myself, when I'm in nature, I am constantly getting distracted by things. So and I have heard, some people theorize that having a spectrum of attention span is adaptive for humans, because if you're in, it might be adaptive today to be able to focus on one thing for 8 hours, but for most of human existence, if there was a noise in the bushes, it was very important for you to change your attention and be like, what's that noise in the bushes? What's that smell over there? So maybe you could share a little bit about your experience between nature journaling and attention, and being in nature and doing art and stuff like that. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I found out that I very probably have ADHD just after I graduated grad school. And I was feeling like I didn't belong in that space and feeling like, why am I uh, not enjoying this? Why is this so difficult for me? Why am I thinking of leaving this career? But like you said, it's that long, sustained, focused attention on one single thing that's rather esoteric and sometimes difficult to uh, care about for 12 hours a day every single day, right? and
Mhm,
uh and so when I found that out, I was like, oh wow, that's crazy, that explains a lot of things. That's interesting because I never had a problem until I went to grad school.
hmm,
And it makes me wonder. I really believe that neurodiversity is really important to human existence and human health. I really
mhm,
believe that everybody has a different type of brain and that all of those brains are useful for different things. And
mhm,
so I find that actually I'm really focused and really present in nature and in my own home or in my own garden. And I don't feel like I struggle with attention when I'm doing nature journaling. But perhaps that's because it's my own special interest right now. You know,
mhm,
we go from like interest to interest, and I think it's okay to follow that. If nature journaling isn't something I do for 10 years, that's okay. I'm still really learning a lot out of it, really enjoying it. So
mhm. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for sharing about that. I feel like that could be a whole episode. Maybe I'll have to think about that for a future episode, because that's such a just either ADHD or just neurodiversity in general. I think combined with nature journaling would be a really interesting thing to talk about. But right now we have to get into the lightning round. Are you ready for the lightning round?
okay, what's the lightning round?
It's just going to be some quick questions and some
Okay.
different like creative questions and fun stuff like that. So um, go ahead and make your best lightning sound.
uh
Nice. Okay. All right, let's get into the lightning round here. Let me put this up here. Okay. So the first ones are just going to be yes or no questions. So don't think
okay.
about them too much, but just yeah, yes or no or whatever comes to your mind. Is coffee an essential art supply?
Yes.
Okay. Organized or messy?
Organized.
Okay. Do you like making art alone or with other people?
Alone.
Does your family understand your art?
I don't think they knew about it until 2 months ago.
Okay, maybe this is a member of your family here on Facebook.
It
Kate
is.
Wallace?
I think that they found out about this and they're here.
Yay. Okay. Um, snacks or no snacks?
Snacks all the way. Gotta have snacks.
Okay. Are you a perfectionist?
Recovering.
Yes, me too. Ink or graphite?
Graphite.
Do you ever have to put art supplies in your mouth?
Yes, it's a requirement.
Okay. Do you prefer the big picture or the micro?
Micro. I like little
Would you
things.
would you rather nature journal on Mars or the deep sea?
The deep sea for sure. Mars is scary and empty.
Everybody goes for the deep sea.
It's also
Um,
more frightening.
yeah. Fast or slow?
Slow.
What face do you make when someone comes up to you and says, "You are so talented, I could never do that"? All right. So if you could nature journal with a historical figure, what historical figure would you want to nature journal with?
Oh, wow. Um, Darwin,
Good choice.
or I'd like to talk to Audubon about some of his life choices.
Mm,
Be nice to
also
meet
good.
him, but I'd have some words for him.
Yes, yes. I think what this always comes up when we talk about nature journaling with some of these historical figures.
Yeah, of
Um,
course, right?
if Yeah, if you fell asleep underneath a toadstool and woke up transported through a fairy portal, what 5 nature journaling supplies would you want to have with you in fairyland?
Man, would I even need to? I'd be so happy. Uh, well, um, I'd like a pencil and I'd like an eraser and I'd like a nice
Okay.
notebook. So those are 3.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
then uh and then and then I'd like really good coffee and then
Okay.
a little tiny paint set.
All right. Nice. I can't wait till you come back from there, but it'll probably be 500 years in the future and I won't be here anymore, but
I will never come
um
back.
okay. All right. Last lightning round question is which Harry Potter character would be the best at nature journaling?
Wow. Luna Lovegood.
Oh, I think she's probably my all-time favorite
She's just
character.
very she's noticing things that other people aren't
Mhm.
noticing. I think she would be good at that.
Great. You know your Harry Potter characters, so we're able to get a good answer in on that one. All right. Good job. You survived the lightning round. That was awesome. Folks who are watching at home, put in who you think, if you're a Harry Potter fan. Oh, a lot of people are already voting for Luna, already predicting what I was going to ask. If you're not a Harry Potter fan, put what fictional character you think would be best at nature journaling. Oh, people are loving that question. They're going
Charlie
crazy.
Weasley's a good answer. He is like
Mm,
a naturalist, isn't he?
yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. Okay,
He
so let's go on here to some of these sort of closing questions. Um, let's see. What is one thing that you've learned from teaching that you think applies to learning nature journaling?
uh I think it all kind of circles around to being comfortable being bad at something, because it really gives some perspective for the little people or the new artists or musicians that you're teaching of how difficult it can be. When if you've been doing something a long time, you can kind of forget uh, what it's like to start out. So, from a
Mhm.
teaching perspective, I think it's good to be new at something, and I hope I never stop
Mm,
learning new things. I
mm.
think it makes me a
That
better
is so
teacher.
good. Mm. Yeah, that's awesome, and I think sometimes we forget that. I taught a, class at one of the nature journaling teacher conferences that was, titled, "Teaching Nature Journaling Before You're Ready," because a lot of people maybe, this was, I think, at the beginning of COVID too, but a lot of, like, homeschool parents, for example, there's sometimes like, how can I teach nature journaling to my kids if I feel like I can't draw, I don't know anything about plants and animals? And
Mhm.
I tried to think of a list of like, well, there's some benefits to teaching something that you don't feel expert at.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like I'm a music teacher because I'm 10 years, 20 years ahead of some of my students, but that doesn't mean I know everything. I don't even know
Mhm.
close to everything. And I think once you start thinking you know everything, you're in trouble.
Yes, 100%. And I think this is where I'm really hopeful that nature journaling and sort of some of the intellectual humility tools and the curiosity tools that we've developed in nature journaling, I'm really hoping to help transfer some of that stuff into nature education in general, because there's still such a strong domination of education with this idea of like, there's one person who has the badge or is taller or on the stage, and they
Mhm.
just walk around and they say a bunch of information or point at different animals, and everyone else is just like, oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
instead of it being like, well, what do you see, what questions do you have, and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Even the student has something to bring, uh, to
Absolutely.
the lesson, I believe.
Great. Okay, let's go into a couple of these questions here. So, what do you think? I know you haven't been nature journaling for very long, but what do you think is the future of nature journaling?
I hope that there's a thriving community of stewardship. I I think we really need um, people to be involved with the environment. I think it's really easy to feel powerless and not to get political, but that's what big oil wants us to feel. They want us to feel powerless. But I think
Mhm,
if we are involved in our local environment, if we're tracking what's happening at our local park, we feel like we have a chip in the game a little. We can feel involved, right? We can make a difference, even if it's at our local park. And
mhm.
I hope that's where nature journaling goes, because I know it's brought me to a greater stewardship and greater understanding of my own natural environments around me. And I hope that everyone gets that from nature journaling.
Great. Are you familiar with Evea Eaton and the Pencil Miles and
Hmm.
Chill that she leads?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah,
I've
she was
attended once.
okay. Okay, cool. Because she does a lot of, restoration work, and,
Hmm.
she spoke really eloquently about how even if all you do is go pick up trash at a spot in your neighborhood, after doing that one time, it sort of changes your it does something in your brain where you feel less hopeless about the situation, the world at large, just because you did that one small thing, and it just helps even just deal with that constant deluge of negative information about what's happening in the world.
Yes, and I think you all automatically have a connection to that place, and you care for that place. And
Mhm,
now you're a steward for that place. Now
mhm,
you notice when there's trash and you pick it up next time. I think
great,
that she's absolutely right with that.
mhm. Alright, well, I'm gonna put your Instagram up here for people to check you out there, and, my final question is, is there anything else, that we should know, or anything that we didn't get to talk about that is important to come up in this conversation?
Uh, I can't think of anything other than I want to tell you a story. The
Yes.
first the first nature journaling page I ever did was because I was absolutely floored with this bird. This is the amazing bird that I have seen. The one amazing bird I've seen. I was driving to work, and I work at a college, and in the parking lot on the grass landed a giant bird. And I was like in my car, and I was like, what is that? So I literally stopped because I don't know anything about birds, but this is a crazy bird. And it's like this big. You can't see. It's like this big. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that bird? And then he has a girlfriend too. So there's two of them. And they're just in the grass pecking. And I look it up, and it's a yellow-billed magpie. Which, you know, a magpie
Wow.
is just a magpie. But what I found out is that this yellow-billed magpie with a yellow bill only lives in the Central Valley of California, where I'm from.
Oh.
And it doesn't live anywhere else. And when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky to have seen that, because I heard, I think from my dad, that a few years ago, these used to be everywhere, but the bird flu wiped out
Oh.
most of them. And so you don't see them that much
Oh my
anymore.
God.
And so he's just a magpie, but he has a really bright yellow beak. And so I went home and I drew him, and I talked about him, and he kind of got me started. And then my friend who works at the college, I shared this on Instagram, and he's a mural artist. And he ended up saying, wait a minute, Merced has its own bird. Merced is where I'm from. Merced has its own bird? It's only in Merced? And I was like, well, the Central Valley, but yeah. So he put the yellow-billed magpie on one of our murals in Merced. And
Wow.
nobody walking by is really going to know, but it's there. And so that's the bird that got me started, was seeing this giant yellow-billed magpie.
That is so cool. I love that story.
Yes, he has long legs,
Yay.
someone said. He has long legs, and
Yeah.
he's very smart. So I hope to see another one
Wow.
someday.
Yeah, that is such a good story about how that bird had a big impact, and then how your nature journaling that bird expanded the ripples of that impact. And now that mural is there for a long time too. So thank you so much for sharing that story. And thanks for making the time today to talk. And thanks to everybody. We had a really great, this is one of the biggest live audiences we've had in a long time. So thanks to everybody who joined in. Oh, look, it looks like there's two people with your last name on Facebook. I see Karen
Oh no.
Wallace. I see Kate Wallace. Verena is here from Berlin. Riley is here. Susan B is here from the East Coast. Cindy also from the East Coast, I believe. Richard is here, who's going to start nature journaling, and he says he's going to follow you on Instagram also. So hopefully Richard will get started with nature journaling. And I know James was here. Susan was here, a whole bunch of other people. So thank you all of you for joining in. And thanks again for making the time to be on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.